Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir, who's wanted for genocide charges by the International Criminal Court, has arrived on a state visit to Libya. He was welcomed by the head of Libya's NATO-backed NTC government. Al-Bashir was a bitter opponent of Gaddafi, who armed civilians in Darfur to defend themselves against the Bashir's armies. Well, to discuss the state visit and the message it sends, I'm now joined live from London by Patrick Hayes. He's a reporter for the Spiked Online magazine. Patrick, a government that came to power fighting for human rights, the NTC, has now just welcomed a man wanted for starting a genocide that killed tens of thousands. A sort of irony here, don't you think?
Well, I don't think it's actually any more ironic than, say, Gordon Brown shaking hands with Muammar Gaddafi in 2009 at the G8 summit in Italy. Or, for example, Tony Blair shaking hands with Gaddafi in 2007 just outside of his hometown, where he was killed in Sirte in 2007. So I mean, I think, yes, there are double standards here, but at the same time, Western leaders are very open to doing this and do this themselves as well. Not, I must say, that I'm any fan of the National Transitional Council. You said that they were fighting for human rights in Libya. Actually, most of the time, they weren't even in Libya at all. The people on the council themselves, they were off cozying up and getting the approval of Western governments to lead Libya, rather than orienting themselves towards the Libyan people and actually fighting for democracy there. They actually, a lot of them just flew in after Gaddafi was gotten rid of and went into hiding. So I mean, I'm no supporter of the NTC, but lots of other Western governments do this kind of things as well. So it's important not to haul them up necessarily for double standards when a lot of other Western leaders will also do the same things.
Of course, some will be wondering why Bashir has now gone to Libya. Of course, Gaddafi was a strong opponent of Bashir's Sudan, arming civilians there to defend themselves against the onslaught of Bashir's government troops. So he really had a reason to see Gaddafi go, didn't he? And, of course, provide valuable support for the rebels insurgents.
Yes, he did. Bashir did support the Libyan rebels, who were fighting against Gaddafi, and had good material reasons to do so. For a long time, Sudan and Libya, Gaddafi's Libya, had been at loggerheads, had been kind of, interfering in each other's kind of local policies in that region of the world. And you can understand why Bashir wanted Gaddafi out, and why now, having supported the rebel uprisings, there would be some attempt to kind of welcome him into Libya. I think, though, I mean, it's important, again, when you're thinking about relations with Bashir, to recognise this is a very local relations between the two. I mean, in terms of local relations, Sudan is a massive player in the region. It shares a border with Libya. It's just south. It makes sense that leaders of local countries do meet and enter into discourse. I find it's very striking that you have now Western organisations criticising the Libyans for engaging with their neighbours and sorting out diplomatic relations. It strikes me to be quite a natural thing to do in this circumstance.
Yes, but don't human rights groups really have a point here, questioning the NTC's very commitment to the rule of law? Surely what they're doing is actually going a little bit too far, isn't it? Inviting and accepting the state visit?
Well, I always just am staggered by the fact that these human rights groups, usually like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty, which are the two big ones that have come out and criticised the Libyan Transitional Council in this instance, basically feel that they have a role in basically telling Libya how it should govern its affairs. The arrogance, the elitism of these kind of organisations, he thinks that they can effectively come in the same way, I would say, kind of missionaries in the 19th century went on civilising missions to Africa and tell other countries how to govern their affairs. I find it extraordinary that they have the gall to do this and basically wield human rights as missionaries in the 19th century wielded the Bible and the Ten Commandments to basically civilise these countries which they see to be inferior and incapable of governing their own countries and people.
Patrick, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much indeed. Patrick Hayes, reporter for the Spiked Online magazine. Thank you. Joining us live there in London.